A WBTB, or known as a wake back to bed, is this method in the lucid dreaming, space that basically it's pretty self-explanatory. I don't really need to explain it. It's a wake back to bed. You wake up, you go back to bed, and a lot of people get this wrong. But firstly, why is a wake back to bed actually important at all? Because oh, you can do a lucid dreaming technique, and then you can just you wake up in a lucid dream, easy, simple, done. But there's a lot of like nuances and things you need to know about sleeping first. So this works for whether or not you just want to you know sleep and get normal dreams or lucid dreams. If you're trying to get a lucid dream, this actually boosts your chance of getting a lucid dream, but also just dreams altogether. And the reason for this is a couple of reasons. Let me explain the most like mathematical simple one first, is that it basically kind of doubles your chances. Um, if you were to flip a coin, like, let's say if your lucid dreaming chances were 50-50, you would want to flip two coins, you know what I mean? And so basically, the thing that sucks about trying to lucid dream is that, everyone would be like grinding this shit if you have multiple chances. But the thing is that you usually only get one chance, and that is when you sleep. But when you do a wake back to bed, now all of a sudden when you're falling asleep, and if your method involves, falling asleep from being awake, you basically effectively get two chances now. And just a side thing, waking back to bed is actually a thing that our ancestors used to do. It's unharmful, especially if you do it at the right time, especially when you're not in a deep sleep. How do you know this? Well, it's actually, now let's go to the scientific approach to why wake back to bed actually works, and that is because of sleep cycles. Now, these sleep cycles actually operate in 90-minute intervals, um, on average. Again, if you're basing, or if you're basing you and everything you do on like study averages, then like, oh, like, you're not thinking straight. But usually it is similar to everyone when it comes to like this very biological thing about sleeping. You should just focus on this, right? And so basically your body needs deep sleep. I think it's like, um I can't remember what the actual, like, the deeper sleep is called, but basically you have that another medium sleep, and then REM sleep. REM sleep's actually like less deep than your deep sleep, but you still need all of these. That's like what a normal person needs, right? And so in your first, I mean, these hours fluctuate a lot depending on, like, how consistent you are in sleeping and all that. But basically, when in your first chunk of sleep, that's when you're deeping this. That's when you're at the deepest sleep. And then basically your other chunk, your other half, basically, that's when you're doing REM sleep. And so basically, REM sleep does come up and down. When it peaks up and it kind of like stays at like a level, that's when you're REM sleeping. You know what? To make this easier for you, go on your Google tab and just search up sleep cycles diagram, and that should basically explain it for you. And basically, every time that peak of like REM sleep comes along, that's when you're going to get the most memorable dreams and lucid dreams. It's called rapid eye movement, and it's basically like your eyes when you're closed, they're like moving constantly because it's like I think it has something to do with like developing like in like a mind image in your head or just something like that. I don't know. I'm not a doctor or anything, but anyway. Um, and so yeah, that's the more scientific thing. And if you stayed for that, then congratulations. We can go into the next thing, and basically how to actually wake back to bed in shit, in a way that it's like um a way that's actually like going to be productive, and also a way that actually works, but also in a way that's like it's not too hard to do. Now, there's many ways to wake back to bed. Let's first start with the waking part. How do you wake up when sleeping normally. Well, again, like I said before, our ancestors used to just do it automatically because maybe their sleeping conditions weren't very comfortable, and they would wake up halfway through the night, maybe do some random things, and then end up going back to bed. Um, but basically, we're basically being forced to like sleep at like a full chunk so that we can wake up, be awake for the whole day. That may be also like why like sometimes you get like a random dip of energy back like in like the late day, especially like you're staying away from like bad foods and all that. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. My point is that um how do we like my point is that it's safe to wake up, it's normal, especially if you go back to the diagram and you go back to actually, if you're not waking up when your sleep isn't the deepest, when it's coming back up, because actually you're actually waking up a couple times during the night, and the best time is when you're automatically waking up. You know how like sometimes you've been woken up when you're sleeping and you're basically like the fucking disabled person, and you're like, oh, like, like what's going on? But sometimes you just wake up, you kind of like readjust yourself, and you end up going back to bed. And you're completely fine, or like you could end up going to like go to the toilet and be like completely fine, right? That's the difference between waking up when you're in a deep sleep and waking up when you're automatically like awake anyway. So you want to pick that time. And so there's many ways to do this. I usually do 4 hours from when I first sleep. Um, and that is usually like fine. Some people have to do like maybe 3 hours, some people do like 5 hours or something like that. I usually pick 4 hours. That's when I'm like starting to get into sleeping. I wake up, I feel completely fine. Um, and then I end up going back to bed. But now is the next part again. How do we actually wake up? There's like three ways you can do it, in my opinion. The first way is the most like way, but it is all reliable. It is just using an alarm, and an alarm uh can be kind of like disrupting, especially if it's like loud. So choose like a very like a tame, like bland sound that can just wake you up and not like shock you out of sleep. It should be like a very calm alarm. And then you also want to, like, if you're a deep sleeper, you also want to put this alarm like at the other side of your room so that you don't just, because like sometimes you're unconscious even when you wake up, and you'll go and like just turn off the alarm and then just go back to bed, and then you have really successfully done the wake back to bed properly. So in my experience, I'm a very deep sleeper, and so what I need to do, even though I'm like waking up still, and I'm not waking up in a deep sleep, I still need to put my alarm at like the other side of the room so that I can actually get up, actually like engage with it, turn it off, and then I'll be like more awake, so I can actually do the wake back to bed properly. Um, the next method is like these methods gonna get harder and harder. The next method to wake up halfway through the night is just like the water method, and you basically just chug a bunch of water before going to sleep, and then when you wake up, your body will automatically feel like the urge just to go to the bathroom. You go for like a little walk to the bathroom. You come back out. You kind of like like refreshed now. Um, is this bad? I don't think so entirely. I think it can be bad if, because some people say, "Oh yeah, I just pissed myself in bed," and I'm just like, dude, like, I used to struggle with like that when I was like a kid. So like, I feel you, bro. Um, I personally haven't like pissed myself when I'm an adult drinking tons of water before bed, but I don't like to rely on this method at all. It's kind of like just like a thing where it's like some people do it, some people are like, oh yeah, like this works constantly for me. I don't know if this is gonna be like harmful for your body, but like in my experience, no one's actually like being like had any negative side effects of drinking tons of water before going to bed. And also it's only like, well, for me it's only 4 hours, right? That you're having this body inside of you. And also your body automatically has this mechanism where it basically stops you from, I mean, it should stop you from pissing yourself when you're going to bed. So that's like another thing that can be very good. And then the last method, and it's the most like it's the most mentally challenging, but it's very simple once you get it down. And that's basically just deciding to wake up in the middle of the night. And so this is kind of hard because you basically need to uh, get accustomed to this. Because the first night you try this, it can be really hard, but basically this is how you do it. Your body has an internal clock, um, called like the uh, like circadian rhythm, and basically you personally don't know, but your body automatically knows when like daylight is, when nighttime is, and this usually is really like your circadian rhythm is usually pretty good when you're consistently going to bed and waking up at like the same time, right? That's because if you're a person like constantly switching around your sleep schedule, then your body doesn't have the internal clock anymore. It still kind of does, but just not to like a long extent. I mean, personally, have you like for me, right? I experience this whenever like I put something like a timer, and I'll always come back to that timer when I just feel like it, and I always come back to that timer when there's like 5 seconds left, and I'm like, oh, perfectly. Like I always perfectly come back to a timer. And that's like more like a shorter thing. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. But what I'm trying to say is that your body has an internal clock, and you can decide whenever you want to do something. Um, and so let's say I'm going to bed and I want to wake up 4 hours from now, I can kind of just let myself know that, oh yeah, I want to wake up 4 hours from now. I go to sleep, and then usually you'll wake up 4 hours from now. And another way you can kind of hijack this is, you don't want to wake up with an alarm. You can basically be like, put on an alarm, maybe like a little bit later than what you're planning on waking up. And that will basically, like, in the back of your mind, you're like, oh yeah, I have an alarm at this time. And so your brain will kind of like automatically wake you up before the alarm. Like, I don't know if you've ever had this, but basically, I always, like, if I put on an alarm for myself to wake up, I'll basically always wake up just before it. And it'll be like, oh my God, perfect timing, or bad timing if you want to sleep. Anyway, doesn't really matter. These are the three methods to actually wake up. Now, how do we actually make sure that our wake back to bed is actually working? Well, it's kind of like a sweet spot. You don't want to, and I've done this plenty of times before because I'm a deep sleeper. You don't want to just wake up and then go straight back to bed, because then your brain's not actually mentally stimulated enough to actually like do any techniques before you go to sleep again. But also, you don't want to be completely awake and aware so that you kind of struggle going back to sleep. And so I'll kind of explain it for the people who deep sleep. What you want to do is maybe wake up for 20 minutes, half an hour. Maybe you just read a book. Maybe you try like your technique. Again, I just auto suggest my lucid dreams to come, and it usually works. I'm not trying to say like I'm on me loose or anything like that. Um, but I'll let you do whatever technique you want to do. And I'll make more videos talking about like different techniques and how you can do them. But you do that, and then you should be like pretty aware enough just to go back to bed, because basically the wake back to bed is all about having another chance of awareness when you go back to bed. Um, and then if you're kind of like a shallow sleeper, I can be at some points when I'm kind of stressed out, but I'm usually deeper. But anyway, if you're more like a shallow sleeper, you kind of just want to get up. Maybe like you go to the bathroom, or like you walk around a little bit, and then you only want to be up for maybe like 2 minutes to 5 minutes, and then you go back to bed. Especially if you struggle going back to sleep pretty quickly, you don't want to be up too long, because otherwise you'll kind of like struggle going back to bed, and it'll kind of like ruin your sleep cycle and stuff like that. Not like entirely, but it can. I know some people who they really like struggle going back to bed. But anyway, that's how you basically do it. You really want to make sure that your brain is kind of like your thought process when you were first going to sleep. Like you're in the day, and then it's like you go to sleep, and then it's like you're kind of like going to sleep normally, right? Um, when you're waking up in the middle of the night, you kind of like want to recreate that experience of like being awake and conscious, and then going back to bed. Um, and this is that's pretty much it. It really is that simple. I kind of like explained basically everything of the wake back to bed method, and now this is like where it comes into thing of like, oh, you have to watch more of my videos. But basically, waking back to bed for most people is basically a way to get normal dreams, but it isn't a way to actually get lucid dreams at all. Lucid dreams come from a lot more practice. Um, personally for me, I do like the auto suggestion, like the WRILD, like the writing method, where basically I just constantly write a phrase, and that basically, and then I won't even try, and then I'll go to sleep and I'll automatically just like wake up in a lucid dream. Um, but yeah, that's really it. Comment down if you're struggling with something about your wake back to bed. um, you also let me get this out of the way. I'm sure you're not a degenerate, but you don't want to be, you know, gaming, going on your electronics at all, looking at bright lights when you're waking up again, because this will like destroy your melatonin and shit like that. Um, and like when I say like I read, I'm reading my Kindle. It doesn't have like any lights on it. You don't want to do anything like distressing before going to bed. You don't want to like do any exercise as well, because that like the adrenaline rush or something like that. And so yeah, I got that out of the way. Now I can finish the video. Um, yeah, leave a comment or two. Let's talk. Subscribe if you want to know more about like all the lucid dreaming methods. And yeah, see you.